My name is Michael Rubino.
I'm on a personal mission to make sure you don't get sick inside your own home.
I knew there was something wrong. I'm just so relieved there's something that you can do about it.
I'm your host, Michael Rubino, and today's amazing guest, Dr. Tony Ebel. Dr. Tony, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here. Please let everyone know why you're here and what we're going to learn from you today.
Yeah, you got it, brother, man. Goodness, why I'm here. We have an obsessive mission with just getting kids healthy again. And I wish the mission was keeping them healthy from the beginning, which is the greatest miracle, is the ones that you don't have to, go into the storm, go into sickness, and then come to the other side of it. But for too many of us as parents today, it goes to the bad, to the good. So I'm here because that's been my life's work for the last 20 years as a nervous system focused pediatric chiropractor, is figuring out every single foundational layer of the root causes, because it's plural, as to why our kids are so sick. Because you gotta go into the bad. You gotta go figure out what the problems are, what the challenges are, and once you become aware of those, then you can take action. You got to have clarity on what the root causes are, and so that's what we're going to learn today. We're going to get real deep, real nerdy, but I always joke I'm an Iowa farm kid and I'm a dad, so I'll bring in some farmer analogies and some dad jokes to make sure we don't get too nerdy.
That's great. Well, as a father of two, I have a daughter who's 5, turning 6 actually very shortly, and a son who's 9 who'll be turning 10 this year. So I'm very interested in this topic. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us today. So diving right in, first off, what are some root causes that we need to be concerned about with our kids, especially?
Yeah. So I'll kind of give you the frame as to where it really came to my understanding with absolute clarity and through a little story, and then I'll get into them. Because as a chiropractor, that is the philosophy of our profession. It's what really separates us separate and distinct from medicine, is this obsession with root cause. We always joke that DC stands for not Doctor of Chiropractic, but Doctor of Cause. And so we're the annoying toddler who just keeps asking questions until we get to the real root cause why. So I had an incredible mentor, Dr. Cody. So I was going to be a regular chiropractor, which is awesome, by the way, because chiropractic for back pain is better than opioids and steroids and surgery and everything else. But so I was going to be sports, general. My oldest was born 2 weeks before I graduated chiropractic school. And as does happen, you have these perspective shifts. And so I go headfirst, as is my raging bull energy, into just learning everything I can about kids' health. Well, when you're going to be a doctor, your job is to first really work on sick kids, right? And then get them healthy again. So I've taken all these postdoctorate classes. I'm sitting in all these seminars, but I had a mentor, Dr. Cody, who just said, hey, listen up, Tony. If you really want to know why your kids are so sick that you're taking care of, you just need to shut up. I think he knew I talked a lot. And just, you need to be quiet and listen to their moms and listen to their parents tell you their case history. Not in the way school teaches you just to take a case history because you're supposed to, right? Fill out this paperwork and then dig in, but actually intentionally listen. And so what I found, and I'm going to start with 3 because these are kind of the 3 main categories of root cause. And then there's a lot of deeper layers that deserve to be talked about within them. But the first thing I started to hear in case histories of kids who were chronically sick. So I'm isolating it to really sick kids. Autism. Back then it would have been, some of these cases would have been technically called Asperger's, ADHD, anxiety, autoimmune. And these are families, by the time they're getting to me, they've exhausted traditional medicine, right? They've seen every specialist, tried every medication. Today, a lot of families have exhausted that plus some holistic stuff. So I found that there was just about 60, it's now unfortunately gone up to about 70 to 80% of the time, just a high stress fertility and pregnancy journey. So there was some medical complications like true high risk, or there was just mom and dad were crazy busy, school, life, kids, just we live in this high stress, sympathetic dominant anxiety world. And so that was a factor, number one. Second, we found that birth interventions. So this was about 85 to 90% of the time, and it still rings true in every case history I take today. And I've taught this to thousands of other doctors, and the research now backs it up. There's birth interventions, forceps, vacuum, cord wrap, C-section, induction. And so those create these neurological challenges with the brainstem and some stuff we can nerd out on later. And it's just kind of washed under the rug. Oh, this has just happened, right? But we would never allow that to happen to these kids' necks, nervous systems, airway is what we'll talk about today, because that's where that oxygenation gets into the brain. So birth trauma, number 2. And then number 3 is the one that everybody kind of in our world, right, who is obsessed with natural health talks about, toxins. Then I started to see, okay, these kids are just getting onslaughted during these early critical stages of nervous system, digestive and immune system development. Way too many antibiotics, way too many inhalers, way too many chemicals in our air, in our food and water supply. And then I like to say it this way, Michael, is kids and chemicals don't mix. And so chemicals should not be inhaled, ingested, or injected into our kids, would be the perfect way to spin it up. So those are the 3 main categories.
So interesting. Well, obviously we see like, the toxins, that the amount of toxins that we're breathing in, that we're being exposed to, continues to increase, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's not good. And hopefully we're doing more and more about that, with the movement that's going on right now. We're starting to kind of see the tide changing, which is good. But it's really interesting about this trauma. And I've had, I don't have patients because I'm not a doctor, but I have a lot of clients that come to me and they're dealing with all these different illnesses, and they're dealing with the environmental impacts that their house has. But almost every human being has some level of trauma, right? Yes, and so it's interesting to see, because I've been seeing a lot more, not only mental health effects, people coming with extreme anxiety, extreme depression, even the emotional side of the PTSD that happens even after the fact. Yep. But there's a lot of trauma involved. And I've just been noticing that. And that seems to be another piece of the puzzle that has to kind of coincide with this overall health and wellness journey, right? Because we're not addressing some of this past trauma that we've experienced, some of which could have been, kids, right? Being as a kid, as you mentioned, childbirth, right? I find that interesting, because if you are going through trauma, we've all heard of like muscle memory and cell memory. You're going through trauma, then you're in a moldy environment, let's just say, right? Yeah. You start to record the, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? I mean, just that cell response of the particles entering your body, right? I wonder if experiencing that later in life makes those symptoms worse, right?
To the T. You are nailing it on the head, brother man, because that's why. So over time, what I came to do is I think it was all the way back in 2008. I almost needed to document this all together. I kept hearing it one after one after one. And eventually, and again, especially as a chiropractor, you're trained for root cause, but God just gave me this, pattern recognition brain. I kind of see how things coalesce together. And so I literally made a PowerPoint in 2008 to give a presentation to an ADHD and autism group. And it was almost like cathartic for me to make sense of all this, because the PowerPoint and taking notes forced me to put the whole story together instead of the bits and pieces, right? And so I ended up naming that the perfect storm. And that's how we've stated this from that forward. Like, it's not one thing, it's a multitude of things. But what I really want them to know, and you're literally dialing it in right there, it's actually the sequencing of these stressors that is really the troublemaker. And I find that not that many providers or researchers are talking about that. So parents are kind of missing it. And so it'll end up feeling like, oh, I've got it figured out. It's all these things. So I just need to address all these things. And what parents today come to me as saying is, we're doing all the right things, cleaning up this and cleaning up that and working on this therapy and adding this supplement and doing this detox. And they can't quite still get the nervous system to heal, because trauma, emotional trauma. So in chiropractic since 1895, we talked about the 3 T's: thoughts. So that would be emotional trauma, toxins, chemical, and then trauma, physical injuries. If you go through this perfect storm from fetal development to birth to infant development, which is where the nervous system is literally developing faster, and then the nervous system runs the digestive system, the immune system, the inflammatory cascade. So if you get the nervous system haywire, everything downstream is haywire for that kid for the rest of their life. So the nervous system is the boss. And so that fetal development period, that would be under the emotional trauma. Mom's nervous system is literally tethered together to the umbilical cord. Yes, let's not put toxins in there. Yes, we need to get oxygen and nutrients in there. But that umbilical cord is the It's the power cord. I always kind of just, my Iowa farmer terminology is it's the electrical cord. It's mom's nervous system. So if we're just constantly inundating her with stress and disempowerment and fear and anxiety, which is the way of the medical system, well, now the child's growing up in that sympathetic, and that'll leave its mark. Trauma leaves its mark. And then the physical trauma comes in. So those two layers of trauma, they're beneath the surface for this conversation, we'll call it. They don't show up on lab work. They don't show up, on stool samples. Those are neurologically stored traumas. They show up more in the neurophysical system, or kind of the neurobiomechanical system, which is the place that obviously chiropractors, that's our realm. And so it's just missed, because not only is it kind of missed in the conversation, because awesomely, like I agree, this movement, right? We're waking up to toxins. They're also not brand new though. You know what I mean? Like we can go back a lot of, they're more and they're worse than before, but we could go back a lot of generations and say, well, they were exposed to toxins too, but the prenatal journey, the fetal development, labor and delivery, early infancy, was different. And so there's this hypersensitivity to toxins, from mold to gluten to dairy to, and so if you look beneath the surface, you can just start to see the neurogastric immune system is so stressed. We would call that dysregulated or subluxated early on. And now you take that nervous system and you expose that kiddo to, or that person to, these toxins and spores. They're just, it's 1 + 1 = 11 in the negative direction, you know? And so got to get them better by getting both of those ones handled.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is going to sound like really cheesy, but lately I Tony Robbins did a summit recently. It was like a free online thing. So I'm like, I'm going to sign up for this thing. Why not? He's like one of the best speakers of our time. Right. I started listening to this guy, and one thing I really like about him is a lot of this mental stuff that he kind of helps people, coach people through, is all backed up by science, right? And so he does a lot of these scientific approaches, but there's this one really interesting exercise that he did that I wanted to share with you real quick, because it kind of ties into this. And he's like, all right, who produces energy? Like, where do you get energy from? And everybody's like raising their hand and they're like, oh, I get energy from eating, right? I get energy from sleeping. And he's like, that's interesting. Well, let me ask you something. When you were at Thanksgiving and you literally stuffed your face, did you feel energized or did you feel tired? And everyone's like, oh yeah, I guess I don't feel energized when I eat food. I guess I felt tired, right? And it's interesting because, then he's like, let me show you what energy is, how you create energy. But by the way, the secret is you create energy for your body. Right. And he's like, stand up in your chair, and he plays music and everyone's dancing. He's like, you are literally creating energy right now. You are deciding to give your body energy and getting up and dancing. And he starts going off how I think it was Stanford basically followed him around for like a year and did a whole long study on this. And this guy was like burning 11,000 calories, like on stage, which was like enough calories for like 2 NHL practices or something to that effect. I might be butchering some of this stuff, by the way, but you get the gist, right?
I do.
And a normal person doesn't burn 11,000 calories in a day, right? How could he burn 11,000 calories in a day? Well, just because he was creating the energy that he needed to deliver like what he was trying to deliver. And you and I do the same thing, right? But it's just our minds can become blockades. Yeah. And why does our mind become a blockade? Well, history and trauma and all these other things. And so why I thought that's so interesting is because I think so many people forget how powerful they actually are.
Indeed.
If you're listening to this right now, literally you have the power to make decisions for change.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of us, we rely on experts and advice and things of that nature. But, if that helps, great. But it has to start with you. Yeah. And it has to start with you going to that root cause approach and wanting to change and make that change. So, it's really interesting because we don't talk a lot about the mind and how powerful the mind is. And I think that's another a big missing link in this entire picture. So I'd love to ask you, obviously what's your process and how does your, because this transcends typical chiropractic,
it sure
right?
Does.
So
it sure does.
So
and we we could use Tony Robbins as an example to explain exactly this and the difference of it. So that's so cool because I can relate this to parents, to how we create energy, how chiropractic adjustments, nervous system focused adjustments work to give the body that ability to heal and clear from the inside out. And so Tony Robbins is actually a huge chiropractic advocate, but he's very particular kind of chiropractic, nervous system focused chiropractic, because Tony has studied the science inside out of neuroscience and how you generate energy. And it's the energy that keeps not only your cells healthy, your digestion healthy, your body healthy, but it keeps your mind healthy because there's a brain body connection. It used to be, everybody used to think it was woo woo and weirdo, but it is completely proven by neuroscience. And so Tony he jumps on, I believe actually when he's doing those huge seminars and he's teaching 10, 12, I think he's got a chiropractor on staff. Yep. And he gets adjusted 2 to 3 times a day because an adjustment, I've always taught my patients this way because I've studied this my whole life. An adjustment is like the most potent package of exercise you could ever get in one moment. Because what happens is the spine, especially the neck and that part of the nervous system, they're very dense in what are called proprioceptors or mechanoreceptors, which are the energy cells. So it's that sensory input of movement. That's why every one of us, if we're stuck at our desk forever or we're stuck in traffic, all we want to do to gain energy and mental clarity and emotional regulation and all these things we want our kids to have is to move, right? And all of a sudden, bam, you're expending energy, but you're gaining energy. That's the science of mechanoreception or proprioception. So an adjustment, 60% of all of our proprioceptive input into the brain comes from the spine, the nerves and muscles along the spine. 1/3 of it, 1/3 of the brain's input comes just from the tiny little muscles at the base of your neck and skull. So if you've ever been really, really stressed and had that tension headache that you're like, is that my neck? Is that my head? Is that all of it? So our kids, so let's translate this to kids. If you see a kiddo who's locked into autism, locked into ADHD, locked into these high stress nervous system challenges, they're moving. They literally are constantly bouncing, moving, talking, touching, because that's actually calming and regulating. So stemming is a version of creating calming, regulating, organizing energy. So Tony does his trampolines, he does his movements around, he does his adjustments because he not only wants to have like a dosage of energy, we'll call it, he wants to have mental acuity. He cares a lot about his speaking and his performance, right? That goes to that. I never do a workshop for parents or teach other chiropractors without getting adjusted, without doing a workout that day. Like I prime my nervous system to be at my best for the kids, the families, and the people that I'm going to serve. So I love that you bring that in. And so kids are stuck. Now, what I want parents to hear, like if you think, oh no, tension headache, is that what's going on? What we now know about the pain receptor part of kids, they're not necessarily dealing with physical pain that they then need to move and stem and get that tension out. But even infants will, with torticollis and all these challenges, you'll see them like a colicky baby is arching, right? And trying to get, that's what they're doing. They're seeking movement to calm their nervous system. And so they're not in physical pain per se. They're in sensory. I always kind of teach my patients, they're in sensory overload. So it's almost like a sensory version of pain versus a physical version of pain. They have it. There's a vagus nerve that goes down into the gut, and the vagus nerve is the calming, regulating, oxygenating, detoxing nerve. So the digestive system is irritating them and causing that. And so, and then I'll put a bow on it with this. That's my favorite science. So I love that I've watched all the documentaries on Tony Robbins and I'm like, oh, he's getting adjusted and he's jumping on the trampoline and he's using neuroscience for performance and then teaching it to others. Couldn't be a bigger fan. But you said something else there too, brother man, that is essential. Parents and patients, you're the best doctor. You're the best coach. You're the best guy. Like our obsession in our work, and it's very different than most doctors and providers. We run a full partnership style practice. Step number 1 is to inform, educate, explain, answer questions. We want to arm our patients and parents with so much information that they know, K-N-O freaking W, we can get through this storm. We do have the power to heal. We are in charge of these results. We can take these actions. And there's a lot of things, Michael, that tick me off about conventional medicine. But if there's probably a lead horse of frustration, it's that they really try and disempower their patients and they really run kind of like a dictatorship style of like a conventional pediatric. Oh, if you're not going to do this, get out of here. That's not doctoring, that's awful. Right. And so we do. We take this to the nth degree, not only because we find it essential and foundational to help our patients and families heal, but we do it extra to make up for the other kind of doctors that do the opposite of it. We're a hope dealership if there ever was one. And it's a part of healing. I just did a whole podcast about the actual neuroscience behind hope and empowerment and mindset. It's as real as rain. It's not just a, yoga retreat and Sedona concept. It's real as rain. Sorry,
no,
that was a full rant there, brother, man. I love this stuff.
No, I appreciate the full rant. No, I mean, I think the reality of it is if you're having dark thoughts, you're going to be going through dark times.
Yeah.
When you're having positive thoughts, you're going to go through more positive times.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like life is a matter of perspective, right? Yeah. Life is a matter of how you view things. And for so many people, when you're kind of like stuck in a rut, when you're not feeling well, especially when you're not feeling well, right? Like it's like everything else becomes 10 times harder, right? And so just living a normal life becomes, almost like a pipe dream. Right. Sure. Because you can't get out of bed. I mean, there's that saying like, a sick man only has one dream, but a healthy man has 1,000 dreams. Right. The reality of it is like when you're sick, your only dream is you just want to be better.
Yep.
And, so again, it's like you can't there's only a small lens that you're really looking at life in, and it's going to be a more negative lens. And right. And so I think a lot of this has to come down to people being empowered, as you mentioned. With the information they need to get out of that rut.
Yeah.
And, mindset's definitely a big part of it, right? Because I don't care what you have. Yeah. There is no magic pill that you could take that's going to make all your problems go away.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
And so you are going to need to create the energy, and you are going to need to create the mindset to get you going through that journey to get to the other side, because it's going to take work. Whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to, get healthier and kick the chronic fatigue you're dealing with, whether you have an autoimmune condition, it's going to take work to get out of that. Even when you identify the root cause, right? Yeah. You're going to have to probably go on a special diet. You're probably going to have to work out more. You might have to sit in the sauna a few, 20 minutes a day. You might have some supplements you need to take. You might have some tests you need to do. The bottom line is, you're going to have to drag yourself and your body to the finish line. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're working with me, you might have this other complexity of all these different toxins that you're breathing in consistently. And, you're going to have to put together a team to deal with that too. Right. And so I think at the end of the day,
otherwise, if not, because if you get momentum, you'll lose momentum. You'll get momentum, you'll lose momentum. So you got to get those toxins out of the way so that you can continue the momentum that you've generated.
Health is holistic, right? And for so many people, we have this very like small little path and mindset to health. And I think that's where people struggle because, for you already outlined basically three different aspects that really affect human health in a great way. And one of those aspects has 2 layers to it. So it's already somewhat simple, but also complex in that simplicity, right?
It is.
And then when you think about it from that perspective, you have to apply all those 3 principles to all these different areas of your life, right? And so it's not so easy. But the thing is, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? Yeah. And I said it comes down to this point of like, you need to take those steps, and it starts with making that decision.
Yeah. And I can share with the audience, honestly, a cheat code. And I've thought about this analogy a ton because I am right in line with you 100%. It takes work to be healthy, which means it actually takes even more work to get healthy when you've lost it, because restoration of, again, I live in this beautiful farmhouse God has blessed us with, but restoration of a farmhouse or a barn is way harder than just building it from scratch, right? It's a totally different way to do it. And because you got to go backwards and then forward instead of just forward. So there is and so I have this love-loathe relationship here, Michael, with health hacks and biohacking and this cheat code concept, because net, the thesis is true as could be. It takes work, right? So we got to generate energy. We got to stay through it. Now, what I do know, though, because I've studied this like crazy, is there are some starter, what I'm going to call, I've always referred to them as cheat codes because I grew up, as a farm kid, the few times I got to play video games, it was like the greatest thing ever, Mario Kart and whatever. And still, so my kids were very active. We're outside, not a lot of digital connection for my kids, much to their chagrin, which means when we do play and we play Mario Kart, I crush them, Michael. This is my, like, no hold back. Like, I'm smoking my kids, they're going to have to earn their victories. And so being the OG Mario Kart veteran that I am, I know all the shortcuts. I know all the cheat codes. Well, that's a goofy analogy to help you hopefully remember this, listeners, to say, and I'm going to give you a very Homer answer, but this is how the neuroscience works, and it's how I've witnessed it for almost 20 years in my clinic. Chiropractic adjustments, because all you have to do to get the benefit of a chiropractic adjustment, like literally, is to show up, lay on the table. And it takes a couple of minutes. It's mystifying how awesome our neuroscience is as compared to all these things I'm about to rip through that I all do for my own well-being and nervous system regulation. I've got a sauna. I mix in yoga, CrossFit, and rucking. Like I'm obsessed. I've got my supplements. We tuck our Vitamix in at night and we say, we love you, little guy. Like we do all this sort of stuff to be healthy. But son of a gun, do I love my 3-minute adjustments, because what a chiropractic adjustment does, this kind of chiropractic adjustment, not your in a van down by the river chiropractic, but nervous system focused chiropractic delivers such a potency of neurological vagus nerve stimulation. And so what we know and have figured out with our protocols is we know how to reduce and release the stuck sympathetic stress that has just been bogging you down, wearing you down, not just physically. That's the easy stuff. That's the easy part of chiropractic. When you can tap into somebody's exhaustion, depression, chronic fatigue, sleep issues, digestive, so you get the sympathetic nervous system to relax in the same way, because the nervous system is an inverse system. And the way we do that is we're actually stimulating the parasympathetic and the vagus nerve. Brother, man, people walk out of there who were completely dejected. I can't sleep. My gut feels like a mess all the time. I'm chronically sick. So I know I'm supposed to have a strong mindset, and I know I'm supposed to work out, and I know I'm supposed to choose healthy food. There's actually neuroscience behind this sympathetic dominance, vagal nerve exhaustion. It makes living healthier harder, which is why I want to go into that to say, flip it on the other side. So what we'll tell our patients is we'll give them just a momentary get out of jail free card. And we'll say, I need you to just show up here for 2 weeks. Like, cause usually we're starting maybe 3 times a week, or if it's a really, really tough case, the chiropractic is dosage, if you will, not my favorite term because we're working without medications, but the more often you get adjusted, the more benefit you get. And the more sick you are or stressed you are, the more you got to up that dosage in the beginning to catch up. And so we'll just say, I know you've tried everything and you just can't quite seem to get that momentum. Give us 2 weeks. Give us 30 days. Maybe it's a super chronic Lyme's or autism case. Give us 90 days. Just get here. Commit to one thing, getting adjusted, letting us retune, reorganize, and stimulate your nervous system. And I promise you're going to start sleeping better. Your digestion is going to work better because the nervous system has primary functions, Mike. They're sleep, eat, breathe, and move. Those are the 4 primary functions of the body. When the nervous system is toast, it sucks at all 4 of those. So you could be in the sauna. It breaks my heart when I meet patients who have literally freaking thrown the book at their health, right? But they skip the foundation. They're trying the hacks of this supplement and this herb and this thing, but on a foundational level, their nervous system is toast. So when I get heartbroken, I also get excited because I go, okay, this is a health conscious ass kicking person. They're ready to be healthy. We get them adjusted and give them some momentum to get their nervous system moving in the right direction. They can now tap into that healing momentum, layer on it, and get everything better. But I mean, I have one more chapter to this rant. And I'm saying this because I was so blessed and honored to be on this podcast, because I just need to talk about this more with my own patients. We're going to send this out to our tribe when we get it. The one thing that I will see again and again, and I got to do a better job. I'm saying it right out loud to you, an expert in this field, and others listening. Whenever we've got chiropractic rolling and nutrition rolling, and this family, this patient's going, and I just can't get them to break through, we just reach a plateau or a stuck point, or they never quite get kickstarted, that house is a mess. It's air. It's mold. And once you open the hood to it, whoofta, which is a Midwest term for,
yeah.
And oh my gosh, so cool to then find that, because this person will be dejected and heartbroken. Like, I'm doing it. I'm getting, now they even add chiropractic. I'm getting adjusted. I'm in the sauna. I'm going to yoga. I'm taking my supplements. I'm eating paleo, and I can't get healthier. My kids can't get healthy. You get their house cleaned up. And I know I'm simplifying that, brother man, to your level of expertise, but like it's been, I mean, I'll shut up after this, I promise. My podcast producer is in here with me today. Their little daughter, like their kiddos, we just couldn't get them the most holistic, awesome chiropractic family. And it was mold, and in the washer and dryer. And then, from that. And so got that out of the way, and Noel, healing just exploded. So it is, my rant had a lot of chapters there to it. Right. But if people are listening, you go back to the sequencing, the foundation is the nervous system. So if you feel like you or your kiddo's nervous system is just wrecked and trashed, and no matter, you can't deep breathe, you can't get any of this going, get adjusted. Use chiropractic as your cheat code to get that spark and that catalyst, and then start to layer these other endeavors together. And it works. It works.
No, it's a great point. And yeah, you're right. I mean, toxins, obviously, you already mentioned, are one of the big issues that people are dealing with. And a lot of people don't realize they're getting a dose of toxins every time they breathe in their own home 20,000 times per day. And it's so often overlooked that it's scary, because, for years, people kind of float through the system, the traditional medicine system. They're gaslit. They're told they're crazy. And all this time, they basically were just inhaling the crazy amount of toxins every time they take a breath, every single day. So it couldn't be more true. Now, big question for you is, all right, just like I have doctors, you have tons of different doctors, right? And there's some are better than others, and there's all these different branches of medicine at this point. Then you have chiropractic, right? So am I just like typing in chiropractor in my zip code in Google? Like, how do I find the right chiropractor that works on the sympathetic nervous system here? Yeah,
you do. You want to be choosy. I think. I mean, I'm choosy with everything with my family and my health, right? And you want the best of the best. And so we have become so obsessed with this work because we've experienced the miracles in our clinic. And so it's just how God made me. I was like, this can't just stay in Crystal Lake, Illinois, And again, I had a ton of great mentors and different chiropractic techniques that we learned. So what actually our unique approach to nervous system focused chiropractic is, it's not actually a new form of chiropractic per se, but there's a multitude of different techniques in chiropractic. And most chiropractors, because this is just kind of like 130 years of how things have been done, you either, whatever technique your mentor chiropractor, or you kind of fell in love with at school, because we learn all these different techniques, and usually you choose one, and then that's it. You're a one trick pony, for all the days. That's a limited approach, is what I found. I took this path. I had a great mentor who had this one technique, and so I did it, and most people got better, but I'm a bit obsessive. If most did, that means not all did, right? And so I wanted to figure out what was I missing with these others. So the neurologically focused chiropractors out there will use a multitude of techniques. They're not beholden to one. And so here's what it looks like. So we built a whole network of this called the Pediatric Experience Docs. So PX Docs for short. And we'll send you that's just the website, pxdocs.com. And right on the homepage is the directory of all the docs we train. Now, I'm going to give you a couple more. Let's say, because we're growing as fast as we can to serve kids and families, but we're not everywhere either. So let's say you don't find somebody on that directory. Here's what you want to look for. And I also have an article too, which is a little like almost checkbox sort of PDF that people can go through. So I'll have the team get that to you. You want to just check their brand. This is surface level, but I'll get you a little more granular. You want to do your homework, which is awesomely today we can. Facebook, Instagram, social media and website. And if they're not talking about the nervous system 24/7, if you got pictures of spines and back pain and auto accidents, not nervous system focus. Okay. So They should clearly state, we see kids, families, and focus on the nervous system. All right. Second, this is the big one. You need to go to an office that uses what's called the Insight technology. So thermal, EMG, and HRV, we can actually measure through cutting edge scanning technology nervous system dysfunction. We can measure neuroinflammation. We can measure neurological exhaustion and dysregulation. This is my favorite thing, brother man, is this the nerdiness of this exam. So you can't just talk about the nervous system. You got to test it. You got to know this patient. And here's what the technology does. First, yes, there is subluxation and dysregulation. We have to find out, can we help you? Is this your actual issue? Because it's process of elimination. It's, well, if the scans are showing subluxation and dysautonomia and stress, okay, we can help. And you can build a care plan personalized to that patient from the scans. So the scans are not just knowing whether or not we can help somebody. They give us the most important answers. Here's your individualized, personalized care plan. A lot of chiropractors, unfortunately, everybody gets the same thing, right? Just like medicine, cookie cutter approach. I despise that. And then it'll actually help us figure out the exact techniques and adjustments that patients need. And there's even one more layer to the scans. We run them every 2 to 4 weeks. So we're actually measuring objective progress to make sure that the nervous system is healing, not just symptomatically, but that the nervous system is actually healing foundationally. And so to go to the right chiropractor, I would focus on a nervous system, pediatrics. If you see kids, you are at a level of, some clinical advancement with seeing kids, because it's kids. And then you really want to look for that technology. And if it's just old school and it's x-rays and everybody gets the same adjustments and the same technique and the same care plan, that's not necessarily where you're going to get, again, great stuff for back pain and sports injuries, but not necessarily where you go to get nervous system healing.
Now, Dr. Tony, you've outlined kind of a website. You are obviously training doctors on your approach and, really working on this. I want to know, what is your vision and how do people get behind you and support you?
Well, buddy, man, I trust parents and patients so much. God has wired me different. So I've been training and teaching chiropractors for a long time, and I love it. I'm not going to stop. It's a necessary part of our mission and vision to get thousands of chiropractors, up-leveled to this level of understanding the neuroscience, the clinical protocols. We talked before about empower. We train our staff to be at a different level to empower and build community around patients. We build networks like crazy. Like, we focus on this. Here's your functional nutritionist. Remember the first time I emailed you, I was like, who do you have that does this work in Chicago? Because I have 17 patients I need you to go into their homes and figure this out. So we build a network around people. So my vision is, nowadays, God has turned me loose. And it's a big vision. And I'm so just blown away by how much God is moving mountains right now with this movement and all that. And the fact I get to be a part of it is surreal. So we have our Experience Miracles podcast and other stuff. And so I want to take this message right to parents, right to other podcasts, right to other, providers. And when you learn about it, my trust, my trust is that parents and patients are going to be so convicted and so excited to get better that they will help me get chiropractic's collective crap together. and more chiropractors will be focused and trained and ready to go. So I just trust parents and patients. When our kids are sick, we'll move heaven and earth, to get them healthy again. And so that's the big vision, is to take this work to the world through our PX Docs platform so that we can get you filled with hope, answers, make sense take the complex and simplify it so you know what to do about it and have an action plan. And then that action plan has to include, getting under the care of a high-trained nervous system focused chiropractor. So that middle layer is still essential, but we're really ready to take this work to the world. And I'm really, really grateful, Michael, for the opportunity to be on your podcast and share this message, because it's got to get out there.
I love that so much. And thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be here, obviously, and sharing your message. It's an important one. And I think, it's for a lot of people that if you've never really looked at chiropractic care in terms of, how that might help and affect your specific health journey. Hopefully this has been insightful for you, right? One more time, give everybody your website so they can go and find somebody that has been trained by you.
Yep. Instagram. So I like to pretend, even though I'm 43, I like to pretend like I'm cool on Instagram. Our team is really good at Instagram. So that is PX Docs, PXDOCS, Instagram handle. And then the website is that as well. And then if you love podcasts, the Experience Miracles podcast, which I would love to have you on and come in and nerd out about air quality and literally just take us through, like you gave me the platform to take us through step-by-step our process. I really would like our audience to know the process of how you find, remove, and get clean. I don't know it well enough to speak to it. So also, everybody listening, the Experience Miracles podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff is out there too.
Consider it done. Dr.
Awesome.
Tony, thank you so much for being here today. It's been insightful. I know I'm going on your website right after this and trying to figure out who's in my area because I'll tell you, I've been on my own health journey. I made some great strides and I'm feeling great. And I'm so grateful for that. But, I'll be honest, this is something that has been not on my radar enough. And so I'm excited to take things to the next level and give this a shot. And I'm hoping that I've got someone you've specifically trained in this area. And if not, I'm going to find somebody. I'm
I was going to say, you let me know. I'll help hunt them down with you, brother, man, for sure.
Dr. Tony, thanks so much for being with us here today. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, brother.